Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello to all of my friends and to our honorable lecturer, Sir Wali Ardiansyah. Today, I am Vani Anastasia from 5BD class would like to do a presentation about sampling. So let's get started. This is the table of contents that I would like to talk about. First is the definition of sampling, and second is sampling techniques, and the third is how sampling techniques used in the research. Next. Before we continue to the definition of sampling, I'd like to show you three keywords that show up in the sampling. First is population. Population is all of the individuals, can be people or objects that we want to study or characterize. Second is sample. Sample is the group of individuals in the population that we select to study. And the third one is sampling. Sampling is the process of selecting units or people, organizations from a population of interest. After we know those three keywords, I have a pretty example. I have a simple example. It's a pretty simple idea. Let's say we want to know something about a population. The percentage of people in Mexico who smoke, for example. One way to go about this would be to call up everyone in Mexico, like it could be around 122 million people, and ask them if they smoke. The other way would be to get a subgroup of individuals together, and it could be like 1,000 people, for example, and ask them if they smoke. And then use that information as an approximation of the information we really want. So the sentence of the group of 1,000 people who make it possible for us to understand the behavior of Mexicans is generally called as a sample, and the way we select them is called sampling. So, a sample is a small group that we choose from the large population from 1,022 million people, and we just choose around 1,000 people. And the way we select them is, we call it as sampling. Next. So we can take a summary that sampling is the process of selecting a group of individuals from a population in order to study them and characterize the population as a whole. Next, now we continue to the second topic about sampling methods. So sampling methods divided into two methods. First is probability methods and second non-probability methods. First, probability sample. The researcher chooses members for research at random. This sampling method is not a fixed or predefined selection process. This makes it difficult for all elements of a population to have equal opportunities to be included in a sample. Next, now we see those are four types of probability sample techniques. First is simple random sampling. So simple random sampling is one of the best probability sampling techniques that helps in saving time and resources. It is a reliable method of obtaining information where every single member of a population is chosen randomly. Each individual has the same probability of being chosen to be a part of a sample. It means all people or all objects have the same chance to be a part of a sample without any divided into any group. And second is cluster sampling. Cluster sampling in the researchers divide the entire population into sections or clusters that represent a population. Clusters are identified and included in a sample based on demographic parameters like age, sex, or location, and others. Cluster sampling is more effective as the result will be organized. for example, in Indonesia has some city that are Palembang, Jakarta, and if in the cluster sampling, use those subjects so that it will be organized to check the sample. And the third is systematic sampling. To choose the sample members of a population at regular intervals, it requires the selection of the sample can be repeated at a regular interval. This type of sampling method has a predefined range, and hence the sampling technique is the least time-consuming. The last one is stratified random sampling. So in here, the researcher divides the population into smaller groups that do not overlap but represent the entire population. While sampling, these groups can be organized and then draw the sample from each group separately. Next, now it is the second of sampling methods, non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling is a sampling method that involves a collection of feedback based on a researcher or statistical sample selection capabilities and not on a fixed selection process. In most situations, the output of a survey conducted with a non-probability sample leads to skewed results, which may not represent the desired target population. Now we see 4 types of non-probability sampling techniques. First is convenience sampling. This method is dependent on the ease of access to subjects, such as surveying customer at a mall or pass by on a busy street. This method is used when there are time and cost limitations in collecting feedback. So in here, in the sampling, as we can share or we can give a brochure to all the people that pass by in a mall or a busy street. Then second, judgmental or purposive sampling is formed by the researcher or the researcher. Researchers purely consider the purpose of the study along with the understanding of the target audience. Like we can use some question like, are you interested in doing your master and blah blah blah. And here we need to know we need to focus on the interest of people wanna do a master degree. And if they say no, it's the answer of no are excluded from the sample. It means we do not count the no answer. And third is snowball sampling. It's a sampling method that researchers apply when the subjects are difficult to trace. Researchers also implement the sampling method in situations where the topic is highly sensitive and not openly discussed. It means, for example, in snowball sampling, is something topic or something sample that is highly sensitive and do not openly discuss, like the victims of any kind of criminals like that, and we can hide the profile of our victims or our sample. And fourth is quota sampling. Quota sampling, the selection of members in the sampling technique happens based on a preset standard. In this case, as a sample is formed based on specific attributes, the greater sample will have the same qualifiers found in the total population. It is a rapid method of collecting samples. So based on those probability samples, here are some the use. First, in probability sample, first is reduced sample bias, second is diverse population, and third, create an accurate sample. And the use of non-probability sample are create a hypothesis, second, exploratory research, and third, budget and time constraints. Okay guys, I think that's all for the presentation today. I hope you enjoy it and thanks for your attention. And I ended with Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.